Yeah. Hello everyone. In my last session, in our previous sessions, we were discussing about CSS. So far, we have seen HTML 4.0 and CSS 2.0. Okay, today I am going to introduce you to JavaScript. So once I show you JavaScript, then we come back and we try to go much deeper inside the subject, and I try to give more and more examples with HTML, with CSS, with JavaScript. But first of all, let me introduce how JavaScript is going to be working. Okay, so what exactly JavaScript is, then after that we work with the JavaScript. We try to explore the data types which are supported in the JavaScript. Similarly, the array supported and what are JavaScript objects. Similarly, we work with actually different events. So therefore, today I introduce you JavaScript. JavaScript is actually a dynamic programming language. JavaScript is dynamic programming language. Mostly it is used with the web pages. So in web pages we use for client side manipulation of the HTML pages. If you want to manipulate client side, in the web browser, if you want to manipulate HTML pages, you can use JavaScript. Okay, so related to JavaScript, you have so many libraries like frameworks, jQuery, AngularJS, Backbone, and server-side JavaScript also these days it's becoming famous. So that is Node.js. Using Node.js, you can do server-side, and using actually the other frameworks, you can do client-side. So client-side manipulation of HTML pages you can do with the help of the JavaScript. JavaScript is a programming language. Initially it was called as LiveScript. Okay, so this all started around 96-97. After seeing the growth of JavaScript, the developers of LiveScript, they named it as JavaScript. In fact, Java is different, JavaScript is different. Both are totally different. Both of them are object-oriented programming languages, but in JavaScript, we implement OOPS concepts in a different way when compared with Java or C# or C++. Okay, so today we are going to look into the features which we have with the JavaScript. Fine. So let me create a new page in which we embed JavaScript code. I go to here, add a new page. I am using here Visual Studio IDE, using which I develop actually web pages. Using Visual Studio, we develop applications for ASP.NET. ASP.NET based websites we can develop with the help of this Visual Studio. Visual Studio is an IDE. When you use IDE, very quickly you can develop. Similarly, using Eclipse, you can develop Java based. Okay, so depending on your comfort, depending on the tools available to you, you can use any of the tools, IDEs available for developing websites. So here I want to use, and I'm giving actually server-side examples from ASP.NET. So when you learn UI, you should not bother much about server-side, because using UI, you get connected to server. From server, you pull data and display the HTML pages. Our focus is going to be more and more on the HTML pages, irrespective of the server-side coding. So using same HTML page, you can get connected to different types of server side. So it may be Java, it may be say ASP.NET, nothing is here in fact tightly coupled. The same pages you can take with a little modification, even you can get connected to Java, you can connect it to Ruby based, or you can get connected to PHP. So whatever server side technology you are using, with that you can get connected. In fact, the web is a client server application and very much loosely coupled this is. It's not very much tightly coupled, it's very much loosely coupled. But if you develop purely the ASP.NET based web forms, in such cases, if you do coding with the ASPX pages, that is going to be tightly coupled. But here I am using pure HTML. With the help of this pure HTML, I get connected to server side. Server side may be ASPX pages, or they can be like web services, or they may be web API. So using the HTML pages, I get connected to server side. So those you may do, the server side you may develop using either ASP.NET technology, or it may be PHP based, or it can be Java based. Our focus is going to be more and more with the here HTML with the UI. So therefore we are focusing on the HTML. Then other thing is CSS. The third one is here JavaScript. Okay, here now we are going to use a new page. I click on this add new item. I am going to create a new page here, new HTML page. I am trying to make this nothing but here HTML page. I name this as HTML page with JavaScript, or I just put JS. I create here a HTML page with JavaScript. A new page is appearing for us on the screen. You can see here HTML page with JS.html. This is the new page I have created. As we know, it is based on the XHTML. This is as per the W3C, World Wide Web Consortium. We are using here XHTML. So XHTML is nothing but extensible hypertext markup language. Okay, so whenever you use XHTML, it's going to be in the XML format. You have a root node HTML, then followed by you have a closing tag. So inside this HTML tags, you are going to put other tags. When you take any HTML document, you can divide this into two different sections. One is what head, other one is body. So in the body, whatever content you want to render, you can put in the body section, and in the header you can put the titles, meta tags. Meta tags are required in the case of search engine optimization. Similarly, if you want to define any styles, you can define with the help of the style tag. You may be referring an external style, you can refer an external style. Okay, so similarly you can be referring external JavaScript file also. Similarly here you can write inline and in internal CSS, you can write internal JavaScript code also. So JavaScript code is going to be in terms of small functions. You write small functions in JavaScript. Those functions you are going to use in response to certain events which are taking place with the HTML elements. So for example, you take a button. In the case of button, the event is going to be click event. When you click on the button, certain action should be getting performed. Similarly, you have a submit button. When you click on the submit, it goes to server. Whatever form fields are there, they are sent to the server. We have seen that example in our previous in one of our previous sessions. I have shown you an example how to send to server. Similarly, how to upload a file also I have shown you. Once again, let me show you that this is nothing but user registration page. Okay, it is here a user registration page, and here what I do, I have defined like here dot user input, and other thing is dot user field title. I have created here two different CSS styles. I have defined here two different CSS styles. Using this, I am trying to create here some kind of user interface. So I try to create some user interface. So with that, I can capture here username. Then similarly, I can pick here gender, for which I am using radio buttons. Radio buttons I am using. In the case of radio buttons, either of the one you need to choose there. So here I have two radio buttons, only one you can select. So automatically the other will be getting deselected there. Similarly, I have used here one checkbox. One is for swimming, other one is for painting. Then I need to choose a country. So this is here a select. It's nothing but drop down list. From the available drop down list, you can choose any of those countries here, either India or Sri Lanka or Bangladesh or Pakistan. So here when I write option value equal to Ceylon, selected equal to selected, this is going to pick actually Sri Lanka as the default one. Okay, by default it's going to show Sri Lanka. Then after that, I have a submit button. When I click on the submit button, it gets submitted to server. So it's going to be getting submitted to server. You can see completely in the bottom we have the button submit. This is what exactly submit button. It's going to submit data to server. Okay. So for that, with the form, what we have written, see form method equal to post, action equal to default.aspx, encoding type equal to multipart / form data. When you want to upload any files, you need to put this. Whenever you are uploading any files, you require this enc type multipart / form data, otherwise the file cannot be uploaded to server. So for this I have written code in the C#. I have written code for that in the C#. So let me show you the code also here. Though it is not relevant in the UI, but I just try to show you. Okay, whenever the page is submitted, what is happening exactly? It's invoking the default.aspx page. For this you have a attached code in the background. So here it's checking first of all request.form.count if it's greater than or equal to 1. Here whenever you work with the these modern web servers or HTTP servers, they have different objects inbuilt in them, like request object, then response object, server object, application object, session object, and cookies. So like this, predefined objects are available. With the help of that, you can manipulate different things. So request is responsible for handling incoming request. Whenever you have incoming request, in such cases, you use the request object. Similarly, response object is responsible for sending content to browser. Okay, whenever request object is receiving some request from the client, it gets actually the implicit data as well as explicit data. As far as implicit data is concerned, it can get different data like what is the protocol, and similarly, it gets actually browser information, what is the OS user is using, what is the IP address, all those can be captured with the help of the request object. Similarly, whenever response object is sending data, it contains both implicit as well as explicit data. So here what is happening, we have taken request.form username. So username is what? It's one of the form fields within the file. In the user registration, if you come to again user interface, you can see here input type equal to text, name equal to username. We use here two different attributes. One is name, other one is here ID. ID we require in the case of JavaScript, and we use name in the case of server side. Whenever the form data is submitted to server, it's going to be submitted like key value pairs. Like key value pairs, they'll be sent. Key is going to be here, key is going to be the variable name here, username, and the value is whatever you type in the text box, that can be value. Okay, so here key is going to be the username and value is going to be whatever you put in the text box, that can be called as value. Like key value pairs, data is submitted to the server. So it's going to send data to server in the form of key value pairs. Okay, so like this is working. This was with the user registration.html. With that page, the user interface is looking like this. How this is looking little bit better, because we have used CSS. So using CSS, we made like this. Using CSS, we have done like this here. So this is username label, select gender is a label, hobbies is a label, and country is a label, email ID is going to be a label here, and password. So followed by here multi-line text box we have. Then we select a file here, using which we can select a file and we can upload to server. Completely in the bottom we have two buttons, one is submit, other one is reset. So these are on the web form. Okay, so here you input data that will be sent to the server. Fine. Now suppose, now this is going to be, suppose you want to validate. How do you validate this data? You need to validate it. So in such cases, you can use JavaScript. Okay, you can use in such cases JavaScript. Using JavaScript, you can validate it. Validation meaning is what? Suppose you don't enter any name, you don't enter any username. Similarly, you don't enter email ID. You don't enter password. So in such cases, it should not be submitted to server. If you try to submit to server, it should give some error. So therefore, instead of working with some other page, let us concentrate on the same page, on the user registration.html. Let us concentrate. On the same page, we write the JavaScript. So whenever there is no data associated to here, the username, similarly when there is no data available with email ID and with password, so it should not be taking data. It should not take data, that means it should not send data to server. So when you try to submit to server, it should not accept it. So first of all, the request should not go there. So here submit button should not work in such cases. Submit has to, when you click on the submit button, it should give a error message stating that need to select username, or you need to select email ID, or need to select here password. When you miss any of those things, it should not actually accept it. So for that, you can write here now JavaScript code. So using JavaScript code, you can actually validate this. User input validation you can do with the help of the JavaScript. First of all, what we do, we perform here required input validation. We are trying to perform required field validation. So username is a must. This is compulsory. Similarly, we require here email ID. This is also compulsory. Email ID also compulsory, and password is also compulsory in such cases. So therefore, what should happen? Here to the right of this, it should print a message stating username is missing. Similarly, here the email ID is missing. One more thing is what? Password is missing. Like that, we need to show with the JavaScript. So once I demonstrate this, further we can look into JavaScript more and more. Practically, once you do something, after that if you try to focus on language, you get interest, you can learn with interest. But without showing you something practically, so what happens if you try to learn from scratch, you may get bored. So that's why I am trying to show you few practical examples. After that you can go back to the basics of JavaScript, then you can start learning those. That would be really very much interesting, in my opinion, that is. So now here let me write few JavaScript code. With help of that, I try to validate the HTML page. I can validate the HTML page here with the help of the JavaScript. So let me write code for that. Okay. Now here I would like to write some code. With that I am going to validate. Username is mandatory, then similarly email is mandatory and password is mandatory. So you can validate, you can show messages in different ways. First one is what? You can just show alert. You can show some alert box. Alert box is something like actually message box which we use with Windows. Message boxes are these dialog boxes or pop-up boxes we call with different names. You can display in 3 different ways. One is what? You can just give a message. So in such cases it displays only OK button. By clicking on OK button you can dismiss the pop-up or dialog box. Second type of thing is going to be you have something like confirmation, yes, no. And third one is going to be prompt. With the help of that you can give user input. So here now what we require just giving us message. So user should be here intimated about the fields which are missing. So user should be informed regarding the messages regarding the fields for which data is not entered. So either you can use alert box or you can show something on the screen also. To the right of the say text box, the username, you can display in some label that message. But first of all, let us try to work with the alert boxes. So for that we write now JavaScript code. So here this is displaying for user registration, user interface, but when I click on source, it's going to show source for me. So where I should write JavaScript code, I should be writing somewhere in the head part of the given HTML page. In the head section, we should put it. As we know, there are 2 different sections. One is head, other one is body. So in the head, therefore I try to put. Here this is head, sorry, not head. I should use actually script tag. Then here type equal to, type is an attribute. So here I use text/JavaScript. Like this I use. Okay, then I close the tag. Automatically it's going to append an ending tag. Okay, so here starting tag and closing tag also we have in this. The 2 tags are automatic. The ending tag is getting automatically added for us. So this is done by the IDE. If you don't use IDE, you need to type everything. If you miss something, the code may not work properly. But in the case of IDEs, about 1/10 of code is written for us. So in the case of IDEs, it's going to write 1/10 of code for us. So whatever things are missing, they are going to be getting added automatically for us with the help of the IDEs. So try to use IDE like Visual Studio or Eclipse, or there are many other IDEs. So with the help of that, you can develop application very fast. Okay, now here I want to write some JavaScript code. We need to write JavaScript code like functions. We need to write JavaScript code like functions. Okay, so you can write functions. Inside the functions you can declare variables. They are called as local variables to functions. But suppose you declare a function, you declare a variable within the script block. This can be called as here a global variable, where followed by here write MSG. So MSG equal to, here it is, this is JavaScript examples. I put like this, JavaScript examples. This is available anywhere in the given page. Anywhere in the given page, this can be available for us. In any function, it's available. So this is called as here a global variable. We call this as a global variable. I have written where MSG equal to JavaScript examples, and this is called as here a global variable. We call this as a global variable. Anywhere, in the other functions, this is available. And one more thing, JavaScript is similar to C, C++, Java, C Sharp, okay, like PHP even you can say, because these are from the C family of languages. If you know the C family of language, C language or C++ or Java or C Sharp, you can quickly start doing with the JavaScript. But one difference, in the case of those languages, you can declare variables using the data type, except in C Sharp. In C Sharp also dynamically you can create variables using var keyword. But here we can declare a variable using var keyword, var msg equal to JavaScript examples have written here. So what happens in this? You are declaring a variable without any type associated initially, but when you assign some type of assign some data, depending on the data, the type will be inferred for the msg. So now the msg is going to be string type of data. So or strings are going to be enclosed in double quotes, or they can be in single quotes. Either you can put in single quotes or you can put in double quotes. So single quotes have some certain advantage. As we progress, you understand that why we use single quotes sometimes, why we use double quotes. So var msg equal to JavaScript examples. And remember, we use JavaScript here to manipulate DOM. DOM is document object model. So you have a body, in the body you may be having divs, in the divs further you may be having different elements. Okay, you can get hold of elements with the help of the get element by id. Document.get element by id, with the help of that you can get hold of the objects and further you can manipulate them. So for DOM manipulation we use JavaScript. Similarly, whenever you want to send data to server without posting entire data back to server, without submitting entire page to server, for partial postbacks also we can do it. You can use the JavaScript. Okay, so here similarly from navigating from one page to another page also you can use JavaScript. But here we are going to focus on validation of the form. First of all, I want to validate form data. So whenever certain data is missing, I would like to alert user using alert dialog box. So therefore here I am going to write a function. To write function I should use here a function keyword. Function followed by here validate. Okay, function validate we write here. We don't put any return type, but in the Java or in the C Sharp we type here and we put actually either void or return type. So function, we may not be using function there, but we put there actually public or private followed by void or return type of data. But here this is what function validate followed by here we put curly braces like this. Even sometimes you can pass the parameters. If needed you can pass even parameters to this. But now we don't require any parameters. Just I am trying to show you first how the validation can be done. So function validate I am writing here. So whenever here this function is getting executed, it should pick data from the user input. So in the user input username, similarly it should pick data from the email ID, okay, user email. One more thing is password. From these three things it should pick data. Okay, so it should be picking data from those three things. One is here user PWD name, user email, and other thing is here username. These three are mandatory. Without entering data for them, if you try to submit data, the data must not be the form must not be submitted to server. So like that we need to now manage. With the help of JavaScript we are going to do it. Now here write function validate. Okay, so function validate we write here followed by we write like this. First of all we need to get the we need to get the hold of the username. So whether any data is available in the username or not, we need to find out. So for that we use here, I declare a variable, call it as uname. Uname equal to, here I use document dot get element by id. I use like document dot get element by id. So you can get hold of an element by using id, by class name, by name, by tag name ns. So like this you can use various methods. All these are available with the JavaScript, but I want to get hold of it by using get element by id. Now here give the id, where uname equal to document dot get element by id, then give the id. So id is what exactly? Username. This is going to be username. So I want to get hold of username here. This is going to be username. Then here write dot value. So from there I want to pick the value there. I am going to pick actually the value from the say username. Username is actually a input type equal to text. If you look at this, here it is username, its input type equal to text. From this text box I am going to retrieve data with the help of the, here see, the ID is what exactly username. So here using that ID I want to retrieve data. Here now write if condition, if I am using a conditional operator uname dot. So here whether we can trim this or not, see trim, I want to trim this dot, it's going to be, when you trim it's going to be giving you here the string only again. So here write length, if the length is greater than 0 in such cases, sorry, less than 1 in such cases, what should happen, it should give alert message for us. So it should be giving an alert message, alert followed by, here we put username is missing, username is missing, username is missing, we put like this, then followed by here please enter username and retry, like this we put and retry. Okay, like this kind of alert message we give. Here write return false. So now this is going to be returning false in such cases. Whenever username is missing, so we are going to return, that means here only we are going to stop the code execution. Beyond that we are not moving, here just we are stopping it. Now next one, this is fine, suppose username is available. Next thing is here for us we require the email. Suppose if it is missing, email is missing, so then also we should display please enter email ID. So same thing I am going to copy here, copy, but I just change here. So once again I use same variable I am going to use again, see uname is equal to document dot get element by ID. This time I use get element by ID, then here it is user email. So I put like this user email then dot value. Okay, when I put that, once again here it is what uname dot trim dot length less than 1. So here user email is missing, user email is missing. So please enter user email and retry, like this it should give message please enter user email and retry. This message we have to get now. Okay, so this is for email. Let us see once again whether this email or user mail. Let us see exactly this user email. Now similarly we need to choose for the password. We need to now work with the password. Copy same thing here, followed by here we write here. So the variable name is, I forgot that, it should be here user pwd. This is here user pwd. So we should pick now here password. So if it is available, user password is missing, put like this, user password is missing, enter user password and retry. Okay, so otherwise we should return a true value. Here write return true. So when it is true, it will be submitted to server. When it is false, it will not submit to server. Like this we have written code. So this code is for what purpose exactly? To validate the input, user input we are validating. What type of validation we do here? We are doing validation for, whether required data is available or not. When required data is not available, required data here it is a username, then other thing is an email, and one more is actually the password. So these three are mandatory, otherwise it can't be registered. Assume like that. So these three are required, therefore we try to validate here the username field, then similarly user email, and one more thing is user password. We try to validate these three things. If we don't enter data for those fields, it is going to be, it does not accept there, it's not going to be accepting. That means form will not be submitted, and here it's going to display some dialog box for us. It's going to display some dialog box depending on the field what is missing. So based on that, the message you are going to get, that message you are going to be getting. So now let us try to run this. To run this page, what exactly I do? I right click here, then view in browser. Now here, without entering username, I click on submit. What happens? See, sorry, I haven't written code. I'm very sorry. I haven't written code for that. So without writing code, it cannot fire simply. So therefore, what I do here, input submit, value equal to submit. Here I should call that function on click equal to, I should write here return followed by validate. Now here I call the validate function. I am going to call the validate function here. So with this, it's going to perform, it's going to execute the function. Whenever we click on the submit button, this is going to be getting called. Now here view in browser again. Now I click on the submit. It says username is missing, please enter username and retry. I may enter some name here like ASR. I enter here, followed by this time when I click on the submit, it says email ID is missing. It should say like that. It says user email is missing, please enter user email and retry. Okay, I enter email also. I may enter something like this one at gmail.com. I may say. So in such cases, now if I click on the submit, it should say password is missing. Okay, your password is missing, please enter user password, retry. So like this, it is actually displaying the alert dialog boxes for us. Now click on OK. Form is not getting submitted, but when you enter password, I enter some password here. So when you enter password, this will be submitted to server. So server side, now this code can go. It's going to display here this particular default.aspx. It's going to display here default.aspx. In the server side, some code is wrong, due to that it's not actually displaying properly. But here, what is happening? Form is submitted to server. We submitted form to server when we enter data for the password, for email ID, and similarly for the username. So this is called as here validation. You performed actually form validation here for the input. Whenever input is missing, it's going to display the dialog boxes for us. It is displaying the dialog box that is called as alert. It is actually displaying here alert for us. So it's showing some alert dialog. With the help of alert dialog, what happens in this? Cancel. Once again refresh this. I refresh it. When I refresh without entering data in the username, in the email ID or in the password, when I click on submit, it displays like this a dialog box. It is displaying alert dialog box, username is missing, please enter username and retry. Like this we are getting here message. This is called as alerting. So user is getting alerted now in this. Click on OK. Now here see, instead of displaying here alert dialogs, I want to display to the right of it in some text box or in some label I would like to display, or I can use one span inline, say inline, it's called as inline element. Okay, so in such cases what happens? To the right of the username it should display. So take here span, I use here span element, followed by here I want to put certain style equal to, what I do, I want to give little space to the left of it. I want to use here padding left. I go with the padding left, put certain spaces. I would like to go with some 30 px, 30 pixels I would like to use. That means to the left after the username text box, it should take some 30 spaces, then the span element should appear for us. Similarly, I want to use here color, text color I want to use. Color should be red color. In the red color, it should appear for us. Okay, appear. Then here text style I use. So text style I want to use in this. So text decoration style, this should be okay. Decoration only I take here, text decoration, followed by in this again dotted solid only we get. Here we take text, followed by here say not emphasis, text. Okay, text decoration style showing like this. Double those things are shown for us. Okay, font style, let us use, followed by, here we use italic. Using italic we can do, this is going to be a font style. In the italicized fashion, the message whatever we put should be appearing for us. So here we put this. Here I did not do anything. I am going to keep it empty right now. It's going to I am going to keep empty. Just I put star. That means this is a mandatory. Like this I put it. Okay. Now come to end. Then similarly here, let me do this with the email also. User email. Here also I put it. But see how to get hold of it. You require some ID for this. ID. This is going to be mail, like this we put, and on the top we are going to make this as here ID name, put it. If name is not available anywhere, that is fine, otherwise it's going to be some problem. So this is going to be name, and this is what here mail we put, and here one more thing, the password field it is. This is going to be password field. Even here also we require. So span we are keeping ID, this is ID equal to, you put this as UPWD, this is user password, like this we set. So there are going to be different spans we kept here. So one is with the username, other one is with the other one is going to be with the user email, one more is with the user password. The three things we have set it. Okay, now come to the design. In the design how it looks, see, we have here star symbols. You can see star symbol there, here also a star symbol. Even with password also there should be star symbol, but why it is not appearing? Let me open that and see why this is not appearing. So here even with the password also we have set it. We set with the text box, text area, not with the text area. We require with the password. Here it is required. Paste it. Okay, now look in the design. Here you can get with the password also. So 3 stars are looking for us. Username is mandatory. Similarly, email ID is mandatory, and your password is also mandatory. Like this we are putting here 3 stars. But whenever data is missing in them, we should display appropriate message there also. There also we should display appropriate message. Okay, whenever you look at the span has got a property called as text. Using text we can assign value there. So span element has a text property. Using text property we can assign a value there. Now here let me modify the JavaScript function here. I have written some function on the top. So let the function be, let this be here. We try to do one more function. Take it here, then try to here take one more function. So another function name must be here validate input. We write like this. The name of the function is going to be this time validate input. So prior to that it was just validate. This is what exactly validate input. We are trying to validate input. Now here if this is wrong, what we should do, we need to assign a value here. Write document dot get element by ID. Okay, get element by ID. Then here inside this we need to use the name of the input span, uname, that is, then write dot text. Okay, we try to write here dot inner text. It's called as here inner text. The inner text we are going to set. So inner text we take here, inner text, then equal to, try to write like this. Here what do? We are going to write this as username is missing. username is missing, like this we try to set it. Inner text equal to, we tried username is missing. Now see whether this works or not properly for us. Okay, come to this, then just show in the browser. Now here, without entering anything, I click on the submit. Okay, reason is I haven't changed the function name here. Whatever function I am calling, here I should change it, validate input. Similarly, once this is validated, what should happen for us? Here it should be returning false. Okay, now here just try to once again render this to browser. Now I enter here without entering anything, I click on the submit. It says here username is missing. You are getting like this, username is missing. Like this also you can display on the form. Okay, what exactly is happening here? Username is missing, like that we are trying to validate. We are trying to put validation message on the form instead of showing alert dialogues. Few people may not like those pop-ups or alert dialogues. So in such cases they don't feel comfortable. So try to display this way here. Username is missing. Like this you can display some message here. Into the span element you can do that. Okay, the span element you can do. But see, whenever data is available here, it can be submitted back to server. As soon as you type here, what should happen? This should disappear. As soon as you type some data, this should disappear for us. So for that purpose, we need to use actually event related to text. Text box event is required. Okay, so we need to, in such cases, look for that. Whenever some data you enter into text box, what should happen there? As soon as you type here, as soon as you start typing, this should be disappearing for us. This text should disappear. But whenever there is no empty data, here again this should be appearing for us. Like that we need to make it. Whenever you focus on this, whenever you start typing, when you make it empty, whenever you type, whenever characters are available, it should not display this. But whenever it is empty, whenever you make it empty by using backspace, so it should say username is missing. Like that you should have the validation. Try to achieve that validation also there. But before that, we work with even the other elements also. So now here you take this and here try to put in the place of alert, we put this one here. This is umail, I think it is umail. Then here email is missing. Email is missing. Similarly, here we can put password is missing. We put like this, password is missing. Okay, password is missing. Like this we set it. Now just render this. When we render, initially you enter something here, ABB, something like this. After that, when you click on submit, it displays email is missing. Suppose you enter here email, when you click on submit, so password is available there, email ID is also available, it should display here. Why it is happening? Let us see in that. So email is missing, we put here, then user email dot value. Now even here once again we look at the ename only. This should be what exactly? Password. UPWD is the name of it. Okay, so in such cases we should keep it as password is missing. Now render this in the browser. I enter some name like A followed by, click on the submit. It says email is missing. I enter some email ID like this. Some data I am entering, it's nothing but gibberish. When I click on the here submit, it says password is missing. When I enter everything, these are going to be working. But once I type this should disappear. So here this should be disappearing. When it's empty, it should display email is missing. Okay, like that further validation also required. Further we need to validate like that. So whether any event is available or not, let us check for that. Come to the here user input. Here username you have, what are the events associated with this? Let us see. So what events are associated in this? Let us see. Based on that events you can write. So this is going to, this you can get in the case of IDEs. It is called as IntelliSense. Using IntelliSense you get all these things. On change probably you can use. On change function you can use with the help of that, you can make it getting fired. On change you can use here. So using on change you can make the function firing for you. Okay, so on change you can use with the help of on change, you can do this. Fine, so let us use here on change. On change event we use here. So with on change we can do this. Whenever things are changing there, we need to work on that. So here one more function, let me write one more function. This is username changing. Username change. Inside this I should write the code. Okay, what code I write? Again I can take same thing. I can take same thing like this here. Now here let me put, I am going to type this here. Get element by ID, username value. Here we declared uname and here also we declared uname. So in the validate input this is local variable. The scope for the uname is going to be only within the validate input. But once you come into username change, this is another variable. Though it is uname, it has a different scope. So here in this variable you use uname and here also we are going to use uname. So this uname is local to username change, this uname is local to validate input. So like this you have the scope for the variables. Now here whenever length is less than 1 you need to set it. So what we write here, you write whenever length is less than 1, else it should be empty. Just like this. Else here we write document.get element by ID equal to, here it is, just we make this as empty. We are going to make this as empty. Like this we can assign the value. Let us try with the username change. You need to put here username change function. Where it is exactly with the username we need to put on change, we call the username function. We are going to call here, the function name is, let us take username change. This is the function name. We need to call that function here in response to on change. We put that, call like this. We are going to call that function on change. Whenever text is changing in that, it should work that way. So once again show this in the browser. In the browser window once again we try to show this. So when we submit here, what happens? It displays like username is missing. Okay, so on change is not firing, basically it's firing, but when you go away from that it's firing. Now you go away from this, again it says like this. So as long as you have like this here, when you go away from that it is actually disappearing. Okay, but when you make it empty, again when you go away from that, what's happening? It is shown. So like this you can be using the functions. You can use various functions in the JavaScript in relation to the elements. So certain events can be firing with those elements. In response to those events you can call the functions. Like this JavaScript you can use. JavaScript is going to be really very useful. You can use JavaScript in number of situations to validate, for ajaxing, and for many number of, when you want to change some CSS. So for all those cases you can use for animation in the web pages. For that you can use actually JavaScript. JavaScript is going to be really very useful. So our focus is going to be more and more on the JavaScript. Our focus is going to be more and more on the JavaScript. In the JavaScript particularly the core JavaScript, then JavaScript APIs like say jQuery, AngularJS, then Backbone. With all these things we are going to work thoroughly. So my focus is not on the, very much not on the HTML pages, HTML, and not with the say CSS. Our focus is going to be more and more with the JavaScript, jQuery, AngularJS, Backbone. So like this there are number of JavaScript APIs. On all those things I try to focus and I try to give whatever knowledge I have